This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is not America's Sweetheart, Davian.
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit, Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Hey everybody, this is Steve Wilson, the man behind the monster, Kongo Kong, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I'm, of course, your host, James J., and it's a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with Kongo Kong!
Hey everyone, this is Kongo Kong. Go ahead and plug a few of my things. I am a 25-year veteran of the pro wrestling industry, as well as a seasoned gear maker, as well as a coach. And I train young people to become pro wrestlers. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or however you might see fit to get a hold of me. And I can help you with one of those things.
Absolutely, and all of the links to all your social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox as well.
Awesome.
Alright, well, let's kind of get into it. You have your own wrestling school, Professor Kong's wrestling school. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I actually started it with my very first start to finish student. He knew, well, okay, the first and second start to finish students. The first one came up with the idea, and he ran it by the second one, who actually owned a storage unit. And so after fighting, well, I guess wrestling with it for a little while, I kind of fought it, and then I was like, it might not be a bad idea, because at the time I was actually training under the Heroes and Legends wrestling banner, and didn't really want to venture into, I guess my own business, but it became more and more apparent that it was time for me to branch out and do my own thing, and so it's kind of what we did. And student one and student two basically made it possible for Professor Kong's Wrestling Academy to be a thing. That started in 2017, and we are going strong today. To date, I couldn't tell you how many students I have, how many kids I have. When I say kids, that's because I consider them all my children. And, it's a blessing in disguise to have them not only, as students, but in my life, because, we treat each other as if we're family. And I love promoting a family-like environment, because we get to be the family that a lot of these kids don't have. And so I believe that it's important to do that these days, especially with so many people not only losing loved ones, but having to deal with depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that. When you give them some structure, you give them something to grasp onto, more than just a 12-week course, it becomes a very real thing. And regardless as to what their athletic background is, as long as they can go out and entertain the audience, they can wrestle, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, like you said, you're a 25-year-old veteran of the business. I like to say that you were people trained in that era was the Wild West days of pro wrestling. So how did you kind of adapt the way you were trained to how you train people?
Not a whole lot. Well, I don't know. That's kind of hard to say. I guess not a whole lot of difference. I was trained by a luchador by the name of Joe Ortega, who went under the moniker El Tiano. And, he taught a lot of luchador, moves and principles, but the way he taught, the way he taught class and the way he taught us how to build our matches, from smaller to growing to eventually, finally everything is big and now it makes sense for it to feel like there's a big explosion at the end of the match. And I try to teach my kids the same way. It's just a learning process. Like I said, 12-week courses, they don't seem to do a good job, in my opinion. You have to be more thorough. And so I give my kids 2 years to learn under me before we transition on to them being completely on their own.
And you mentioned, they're not your students, you're your kids. That's not necessarily something you hear a lot about when, wrestlers train, students. Was that kind of your intentions going in, or did it kind of develop into that?
I think it more so developed into that. I've always been looked at as some sort of fatherly type figure or whatever, motivator, however you want to look at it. But in opening my school, I certainly developed relationships outside of just the training aspect of it. And as a matter of fact, like one of my kids, I was babysitting his daughter. As far as I'm concerned, she's my granddaughter. I'm black, she's white. It doesn't matter. I'm her papa, and that's what it is.
Hell yeah. Grandpa Kongo. All right. Well, let's talk about Kongo Kong. You were a part of the Ted Petty Invitational for 4 years in a row, and you even won the 2015 edition of that tournament.
Yes.
What did it mean to you to win that tournament, considering a lot of big names are not only a part of it, but won it?
Right. Honestly, the lineage of the Ted Petty Invitational and, IWA Mid-South, Ian Rodden, all things associated, I owe a lot to, because I believe that they helped me get to where I am. And being able to go through that tournament and wrestling guys like Masada and Reed Bentley and Shane Mercer and Chris Hero in the finals, really, honestly, it taught me a lot about myself and how I can push the limits and make it through anything, honestly.
Now, when you win that tournament, is that a moment you take in the moment, or is that something that kind of sets in afterwards, like, wow, I did this?
I think it set in afterwards, because after those 3 grueling matches, I was too tired to think of anything else.
Right.
And I get to the finals and I'm wrestling Chris Hero and Shane Mercer in a triple threat. And, not to give away too much of the business, but there's times where I'm ready for the match to be over and Shane Mercer keeps kicking out of my stuff. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, no, one more. I'm like, I don't have any more. But he pulled it out of me, and he wanted us to go out with a bang on that show, and we did.
I completely understand that. I mean, just the first match you have is Masada, and like just wrestling Masada, that's your night. Like for a lot of people, like I'm wrestling Masada, I'm done.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Masada's a main event opponent anywhere.
Hell yeah. Now, one thing I found very interesting is that, you wrestled in China against Big Sam. What was that experience like wrestling for, a place that maybe where wrestling isn't as developed as it is in the States?
It was incredible. That was actually my second trip over to China for wrestling. The first time we were part of an MMA show, and that's kind of how I got hooked up with the Middle Kingdom guys and whatnot. And so when they brought me back to Shenzhen, China,
Yes.
for the show, and it was crazy. It was quite the experience. Like every big city there to me is like as big as New York City or Toronto or something like that. They're all huge, and they got these giant buildings and there's people everywhere, and it was just an amazing experience. I was scared for my life trying to get in the country because it's China and you hear all kinds of horror stories, but once I was there, it was pretty fun.
Was there any difference that you saw wrestling in China compared to wrestling in the States?
No, because honestly, most of the guys there were from the United States, so they were teaching the Chinese kids a lot of what we already know. And I believe there might have been some Japanese influence there as well. But for the most part, from what I remember, it was mostly United States or UK or somehow English-speaking folks that were leading the way.
I think the question everybody wants to know is, what are you eating in China?
Real Chinese food. Oh my God. They had some really good stuff there. We'll put it like that. It's like not your first, or not what Americans would generally consider to be the best food or whatever. But it was delicious. You know what I'm saying? And if you go over there with a closed mind and like, oh, this is going to be horrible, then you won't get to experience, the cuisine, the actual real Chinese cuisine that you get over there.
Now, you mentioned, the MMA event before going to Middle Kingdom. That was the show with that massive, 8-sided ring, right?
No, that show just had a 4-sided ring.
Okay.
However, it wasn't conditioned for wrestling, and so when you hit the floor, you hit the floor.
Yeah, not fun.
No, not at all.
Well, when you competed, another thing I found very fascinating was when you were competing for Global Force. You wrestled Marufuji, one of the most decorated wrestlers from Noah. You wrestled Marufuji and Eddie Edwards with your tag team partner KM. What was that experience like?
It was fun. He wasn't the first Japanese star that I got to wrestle, but he was definitely probably one of the better known. And it was, just a different experience. He was chopping the crap out of my chest. I remember that, to the point where I almost started covering up because it was starting to sting so bad. But it's just one of those situations where I was able to use the knowledge of wrestling that I have and be able to communicate with somebody who doesn't speak very much English, if any at all. He might know the names of the moves, and if he didn't know the names of the moves, he would understand the motions that we would do, and that's how we were able to put together those matches.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, speaking about your time with TNA, it was a very odd time because they went from TNA to Global Force to Impact, just a lot of transitioning. How could you tell us about your experience at that time in TNA?
It was weird because, like you said, there was a lot of transitioning, and the person that gave me the job, John Gerberick, ended up stepping down as the head guy, and then Jeff Jarrett came in and took over. And, they had similar visions for me. And then from there, Jeff Jarrett was replaced by Scott D'Amore, who I had known for many years, and I'd worked for him for many years and considered him a really good friend. However, just when it came to Impact, for whatever reason, he couldn't figure out what to do with me or how to use me. And so we just kind of, I guess, grew apart, for lack of a better term. And stuff happens. I enjoyed my 2 years there. I wish I had more time there. I wish that I could have been utilized as well as I figured they could have utilized me and done more with me, I guess. But, c'est la vie, such is life. And you move on and you keep going.
Right. Well, I mean, you're working with some impressive individuals from the backstage environment, Jim Cornette and Bruce Prichard. Do you have a Jim Cornette or a Bruce Prichard story?
Yeah, I was doing it was a backstage vignette, and it was with this guy. They called him Richard Justice, and we know him on the independent scene as Dick Justice. He's based out of New York. Really good guy. I really had a lot of fun with him. And we were doing this vignette where I had to beat him up. I forget exactly why I was mad, but I was mad about something. And I believe this was before Abyss, so I'm not completely sure. It might have been while I was still with Laurel Van Ness, or, Chelsea Green. And so Bruce goes up to Dick, and he says, "Hey, so Kong is going to be a little rough with you. He's sorry. He doesn't mean it. Just wanted you to know." We're both sitting over here just cracking up like, oh, wow, okay, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a Bruce Prichard thing to say for him.
Right. He's going to be a little rough with you. He's sorry. He doesn't mean it.
Now, when you were in TNA, you actually got to wrestle in India. What was that experience like?
I did. I got to go twice, actually. Just like China, I ended up going twice. The first time over there, we were in Mumbai, and that was actually for Impact. It was cool. It was different. It was a culture shock, to say the least. If anybody anyone who's ever been to India knows it's not like the cleanest place, not the best smelling place sometimes. But the people there are so nice, and it seems like they're so kind and just willing to try to get to know you and treat you like you're a king, like you're somebody, and I found that to be great. And so even when I went the second time, when I did a tour for the Great Khali, it was just amazing, just getting to know all these people, and especially like some of his students. Like I'm still friends with some of them today. Still talk to them quite often.
What was that experience like, being on a tour in India with the Great Khali? I mean, obviously, the Great Khali is arguably the biggest name from India. Quite literally.
Not only not only is he the biggest name from India, but in India, he's like a walking god to them. Everyone knows of Great Khali, whether they are wrestling fans or not. And just being attached to that, we were treated like royalty for 2 whole weeks over there. And, had the best hotels and, the best rides from town to town. Just treated with such respect and admiration. And the Great Khali is such an awesome guy, so nice. You have to get past the thick, how do I put it? I wouldn't say Indian accent, but like
Punjabi.
that. Yeah, the accent that he has, like, plus, I think with him being a giant, it kind of messes with his speech anyway.
Right.
And so, like, when he spoke English, it was hard to, like, I almost needed a translator for when he spoke English. Like, I would have to ask him, like, huh? What'd you say? But, once you get used to it, it's not too bad a deal. And, he's really nice guy, really great guy to work for. The shows there were 30,000 people or more, and I've never been in front of a crowd that size until I got there.
Now, I am interested to know, what was you eating in India as well?
So the first time we were stuck in a hotel, so it ended up being a lot of fruit because I did not like curry.
Okay.
And the second time, when we were in the lowlands, they served a lot of curry. But when we went up to the mountains, the food to me mimicked what we know in America as Chinese food. And it was so much better. And, I'd never eaten lamb until then because, obviously they don't eat cows.
Right.
And that was a little bit of a struggle, but, once we got through it, it was okay. Living off chicken and lamb for 2 weeks and some vegetarian dishes because there are some spots where they don't eat meat at all. And, being in their culture, you have to respect their culture. And,
Right.
It turned me on to some different flavors, and I don't mind a lot of the stuff, just obviously not curry.
That's definitely one of the most interesting thing about when wrestlers go to India is the food, because I've heard quite a few stories about them trying to navigate, what to eat and what not to eat, because it could be a little bit of a messy situation. You know what I mean?
To say the least. Yes. And one thing that for anybody listening that might end up going over there, if you get a bottle of water, check to make sure that the seal is still intact, because a lot of times what the street merchants will do is take the empty water bottles and refill them and sell them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I don't think they mean any harm by it. However, being from America, our digestive system is not set up for that.
Yes.
So honestly, after the first time I went, I made it through the entire week. I was just fine. I get on the airplane, and the stewardess, it was American Airlines, the stewardess gives me a pop. I believe it was like a Coke Zero or something like that. And I'm drinking it, and there's ice in there. And it dawned on me to ask, okay, where is this ice from? And I go, ma'am, where is this ice from? She goes, right here in Mumbai. And I go, oh, boy.
Oh,
and so
no.
I poured the pop out. But at that point, it was too late. And so for the next 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, like legit nothing solid came out of me. I don't want to get too in detail, but yeah, it was crazy. As a matter of fact, I believe Bruce Prichard even talked about it on his podcast, because we ended up with the same situation.
that just sucks. You know, you're careful the whole long way, and then literally the ride back home.
Right, the ride back home on an American airline, thinking, okay, we'll be fine.
Right.
And no such luck. No such luck.
Well, keeping on TNA, you beat the Monster Abyss in his signature match in one of TNA's most memorable matches, the Monsters Ball. What did that mean to you to get the W on, honestly, one of TNA's bigger stars?
Abyss is an icon.
Hall of Famer.
To this day, I go to places and they talk about my match with Abyss, and it meant everything to me, because I felt like at that point, you know, I had pretty much made it, and that, you know, there should be a lot of good things coming behind that. You know, finally, after 18 years of scratching and surviving on the independents, I'm able to be recognized, I guess, worldwide, you know, because of this match with, you know, such an iconic figure as Abyss. And, you know, I honestly, it's part of the reason why I can still make a living on the independents today. You know, people found it memorable, and, you know, there are quite a few people I run into who were like, man, they dropped the ball on you, because they could have did so much more after that. And, you know, it's neither here nor there, but I believe that, you know, it could have turned into some great stuff, some great television, great ratings, things like that, you know.
Well, keeping up on, you know, legends you've been in the ring with, you wrestled Rey Mysterio in a triple threat with Cody Deaner. Obviously the biggest little man, and, you know, being trained by a luchador yourself, what was that experience like?
It was actually a tag match, and my partner was RJ City. I believe he does some television, like, kind of behind the scene work for AEW. Yes. And man, it was overwhelming, honestly. Like, that was honestly one of the last few times I was nervous. It was so funny, because we were the three of us, myself, Cody, and RJ, were going to talk to Ray, because he had his own locker room and whatnot. And so, like, we're like, do we knock on the door? What do we do? This is Rey Mysterio we're talking to. And you know, it was just a crazy situation. It was weird, because crazy because he called a spot in the ring, and then he messed it up, and I kind of stopped him and went back to it, recalled the spot to him, and he's like, bro, thank you for that, man. He's like, I messed up my own spot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I find this interesting. You were in the ring with Papa Shango, one of the Godfather's underappreciated gimmicks. What was that experience like?
Childhood dream come true. What can I tell you? Had it been the Godfather, it would have been cool. But the fact that he went all the way back to Papa Shango with it, you know, I remember watching him cast voodoo spells on the Ultimate Warrior, and like me legit being scared, because I'm like, okay, this is some weird shit. And you know, this guy is like crazy, and then now all of a sudden I'm sharing a ring with him.
Did you kind of have that conversation with him afterwards? Like, this is my childhood?
Yeah, actually, because not only was he there, Lanny Poffo was there, and I want to say maybe Virgil. Virgil I'd worked with quite a few times. But between Lanny Poffo and Papa Shango, those were two, like, of the of my iconic figures from, like the mid 80s. They were the guys that, okay, one guy is the genius and he's coming out with Mr. Perfect and doing cartwheels and whatnot. And he's actually the Macho Man, Randy Savage's brother. And then this other guy made the Ultimate Warrior puke. Like, what do I do with that? Like, this is crazy. I'm having such a good time reliving my childhood that I don't even have to be, considered anybody special.
Well, from one interesting encounter to a very interesting encounter, to say the least, you wrestled Vampiro and Too Tough Tony with your tag team partner, the Boogeyman.
Once again, another iconic situation, to say the least. You got Vampiro, who's been all over the world. You got the Boogeyman, who was pretty fresh off of WWE television, and such a nice and humble guy. And even to this day, when I see him, when we run into each other, he's just nice and so welcoming and hey, Kongo Kong, and he tells me that he looks up to me, and like, wow. yeah, that like does something for me, because I'm like, wait, what did I do? I'm nobody special.
Was there worms involved?
Yeah, he tried to spit worms on me, and that was my cue to exit the ring.
I'm almost afraid to ask. Shoot worms or walking worms?
Nope, they were shoot worms. They were real worms.
Damn.
Much like I had the opportunity, the fortunate, the how do I put it? I worked with Jake the Snake, and he got to DDT me. I got to take the DDT, let me say it like that. And he puts his snake on me, and once I smelled the snake, I was like, okay, gotta go. Sorry to not sell your DDT, but I'm getting out of here.
I mean, just the simple fact that Jake did the DDT, it's not something he actually does every now and again, especially on the independents.
Right. Exactly.
I can't imagine that's not, a freak out moment. Oh my God, I'm taking the DDT.
I just took the DDT from Jake the Snake. How crazy is this? Like, man, this when the more stuff you bring up, the more I'm like, wow, this 25 years has been amazing for me. There's a lot of people that when I started, they didn't have any kind of faith in me, and it was almost like they wanted me to fail, but then, through perseverance and sticking stuff out and being true to, I guess, myself, things happened, and now look at me. I'm sitting here talking to you about all the different experiences I had with all of my childhood heroes. How's that? How crazy is that?
And I mean, we're just scratching the surface with some of these names. There's a lot more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was him putting the snake on you, did you know he was going to put the snake on you, or was it just something he decided to do in that moment?
No, we talked about it. I was prepared. We were in Newfoundland, up in Canada, and I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know how bad that snake stunk. And not really knowing anything about snakes, I'm like, I don't want to take any chances of getting bit or anything like that. So, he put it on me, and I brushed it off, and I rolled out, and I fell down, fell to the ground.
Right. Now, another name you've been in the ring with, and you actually have a W on, is Greg the Hammer Valentine. What was that experience like, being in the ring with the Hammer?
Honestly, that was my first ex-WWF guy. That was way back in the EWF, Extreme Wrestling Federation days. And yeah, they put me with him, and I remember him weighing approximately 280 pounds, and every time he dropped an elbow, that elbow weighed 280 pounds.
Damn.
And it was such an awesome experience, being able to work with him. I watched a lot of his matches where he would go for the figure four, and the guy would reach up and grab him and bring him over into a small package. And so that was the finish that we used. And it was just one of those situations where is my childhood hero. I know he doesn't want to look bad, and I'm grateful for him wanting to come in and do business for me. So I definitely couldn't come up with any better solution than one of the finishes I've seen him do, a million times. And it was just, I don't know, it was a great situation. That was the start of it, because then I got to wrestle with several people after that were all iconic.
Like Bushwhacker Luke.
Oh yeah. I forget where exactly we were when we wrestled, but yes, we shared a ring. Let's see, there's Rikishi, there's Axe and Smash and Demolition. There's the Powers of Pain, Warlord and Barbarian. There's Eugene. There's I want to say I tagged with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I've tagged with Rikishi. You name it. Like the guys out there that I grew up watching every Monday and Saturday, I've gotten to spend time with in the locker room and in the ring. And it was an amazing situation.
Now, obviously, teaming with Hacksaw Jim Duggan is a big deal, but I'm just curious, were you hanging out with Jim Duggan after the match?
No, because, when you're on tours again, this was up in Newfoundland, Canada, a lot of those guys, they just want to go back to their hotel room. So once they're done with the match, they get dressed and they get dropped off. And so we didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time together. But, the time that we did get to spend together, I thoroughly enjoyed.
I only ask because we've had guests on the show, and their interactions with Jim Duggan was him offering them to
Party
hang out.
favors, yeah.
Huh?
Party favors.
Exactly. Offering party favors. So, just curiosity.
Yeah, no, that was not really my thing. And like, even to this day, if I choose to partake in any kind of 420 activities, I'll do it most likely in the privacy of my own home or while I'm around friends.
Gotcha. Alright. Well, I think that's a great segue into Kong's Bizarre Adventure. You're a pro wrestler that goes up and down the roads, and weird, crazy, and bizarre things are bound to happen. Can you tell us a road story that fits that description?
Ooh, let me think. There's this one time I took some students down to a show not far from where I live in Indiana. And the promoter, like half the show was with my students. And so we took a carload down or whatever, and the promoter didn't have money to pay anybody. And so I remember going up to the promoter and saying, "Hey, I'm going to need you to go rob your mom or your grandma or your dad or somebody and make sure that you get everybody's money, because I'm not about to play with you. I'm going to send you to the shadow realm, if you get what I'm saying." And so next thing I know, his business partner goes out and cancels the show in mid-show, mind you, And he's like, well, yeah, my partner doesn't have the money to pay for anybody, so we're just going to go ahead and stop right now and blah, blah, blah. So then we're getting dressed and trying to get ready to go home. I'm trying to figure out what's going on as far as the money situation goes. Next thing I know, the promoter is having a seizure. The guy that doesn't have the money. And I'm like, how are you having a seizure? And, you know, not thinking about it, I just go and I kind of like watch, you know, there are people around helping them. So, you know, rather than getting in the way, I'll let them do what they're doing. And I wanted to see how long the seizure was lasting. This seizure lasted for 15 minutes. And so finally his business partner paid us all, and we kind of once we found out the promoter was all right, we kind of sat around and chuckled at the idea that me threatening him sent him into a seizure. I was like, well, sometimes you gotta do work and you gotta get the job done, and you know, he shouldn't have been running shows if
Right.
he couldn't afford to pay everybody.
Right. Don't run a show if you can't pay everybody.
Exactly.
Well, bizarre adventure to say the least. Let's talk about you making gear. When did you decide to start making your own gear?
Well, back in, I'd say around 2006 era, I had contacted Easy Money. He was like basically the main one making gear at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a response from him on a quote for the idea that I had for gear. And so there's this lady that I went to church with who did a lot of sewing, and I basically gave her my idea, and she, for the most part, did okay as far as the gear went. She would never make anything so it fit tight. Everything was like super loose, and eventually it got to the point where I was like, okay, you know what, I could probably do better. And so I happened to be going through a department store, and I saw a machine for dirt cheap that was an open box item. So it didn't come with, you know, all the instructions and the box and things like that, you know, because it was a display item. And so I bought it for dirt cheap and took it home and just started experimenting. You know, I take some of my other stuff and tear it apart and like make a pattern out of it. Then I would research how to do, you know, other things like bikers and tights and singlets and pants and shorts and all the other stuff. And just after a while, it just started to click, you know. And then that, in addition to some of the other guys that I knew that were making gear, just getting tips of the trade off of them. You know, well, what do you do about this? What do you do about this? How do you make your lettering? How do you do your designs? You know, and we would share stuff back and forth, and it would help everybody. And, you know, days like today, now, since everybody can be a wrestler, we need way more gear makers, and now everybody can be a gear maker as well.
I imagine that at the beginning there was a lot of trial and error, considering YouTube tutorials weren't a thing.
Correct. Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember everything that people would ask for. I'd end up making like a cardboard cutout of how it was supposed to go. So I try to take their measurements and make them work and use cardboard pretty much to try to gauge how to cut the things out. And it took me a while to get how pants were made or how, you know, bikers tights, because it's really kind of complicated when you don't know what you're looking at, you know.
Right.
And like you said, trial and error. You know, when I started venturing into making gear for other people, it was a lot of, hey, let me see if I can make this for you. I just want you to pay for the material. And so that would be what happened. And we would go that way, and then eventually, once things turned out right, the next time they came back, then I'm like, all right, well, it's going to cost you this much, and then they would pay it. So that started in, I'd say, roughly 2007, and here I am today in 2024, still doing it.
What was maybe the most extravagant gear, or the most time you spent on a piece of gear?
Ooh, that's hard to say because I've done thousands of sets of gear, and usually it's not like one item. It's usually when somebody orders, they want everything from the wrist gauntlets to the kick pads to the knee pads to the tights or trunks or whatever. Sometimes they want a shirt and also like an entrance vest and stuff like that. That stuff can take way more time than a lot of the complicated design stuff.
Okay, I gotcha. I mean, that is pretty extravagant. The whole, it's literally the whole shebang.
Yes.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Can you tell us if there is any significance to your tattoos?
Let's see. The first one was one that's on my right arm. That is the mask with the crown on it. And the original idea I ended up getting off of a video game that I played, which was NCAA football. I forget what year, but one of the creative team logos was kind of the mask, and then I added a little more design to it, and then also added the crown. Because I wanted something that if I'm going to have on me for the rest of my life, and it needs to be something significant. So for me, that kind of represented like a warrior kind of deal. Then I also had the cross in between or on the inside of the tattoo, and I can't imagine myself ever not being a Christian. So yeah, that was the very first tattoo. The second one I got was a cross with an ankh intertwined, and the way the artist made them work was it looks like they're piercing my skin. I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even to this day. Then I added a lion on top of that because I'm a Leo, and I figure Kongo Kong is like the king of the jungle or the master of the jungle. Then why not, adopt a lion, which it makes sense. And so I put a lion on my shoulder. Then in between there, I had lost both my grandmothers. I lost one in 2005 and one in 2018.
Sorry for your loss.
And well, thank you. I appreciate that. And so I wanted to somehow put their initials on my chest and kind of hide them so that, when I was on TV, people weren't like, okay, who is ELS and NRW? So my tattoo artist was very clever, and he came up with a way to disguise them so that, you couldn't really see them, but it looked like it was like a cloud in between my two tattoos. Now, I've lost my mom, and I got one more spot that I'm willing to decorate on the other side of my chest, and I'm just waiting for the right inspiration to put something there. Probably some sort of angel's wing or something like that, that would work and that would fit in with the rest of my tattoos. And yeah, I can get her on there.
Oh yeah. You mentioned video games. Are you a big video game player?
I wouldn't say big video game player. I do play video games to relax and kind of clear my mind at the end of the day. My favorite game to this day is NCAA Football 14. That was the last year that they had actually, had the ability to make the game. And this year, July 19th, they're releasing it after 11 years.
Ooh,
Of
interesting.
being off the shelf. They're releasing it, and so I'm looking forward to that one. I also play some WWF or WWE video games. I do have the 2K24, which is an awesome game, but I think because I wrestle, it's hard to immerse myself in that type of game. But football has always been, I would say, my second love behind wrestling, and it's one that I don't do anymore because it hurts worse than wrestling. So, yeah.
All right. Let's get into the colossal question. Let's say they're making a movie about you. Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs on your movie soundtrack?
Oh man. I live by One Republic.
Okay.
Because that one, even to this day, I play it while we're training sometimes, and people are like, "Who's this song by?" I was like, I've always wondered, and I'm like, man, this song it's by One Republic, and it's about being able to experience life, period. And don't live with regret. Always go out and put your best foot forward and stuff like that. Let's see. I guess number 2 would be a song by this group called Lawrence, a brother and sister duo, and it's called "Don't Lose Sight."
Okay.
And it's an amazing pop song, and it's honestly helped me get through some rough situations in my life. And that's how I look at music is, if it's something that impacts me on an emotional level, then it's one of those songs of my soundtrack. And it's ironic that you asked me that question, because there are certain songs that will make that list, I guess. Number 3. That is a good question. It'd probably be "Soul Food" by Goody Mob, which is a rap song. I'm not a huge rap fan, but it's something about that song, like the beat and the story that it's telling. And it's talking about soul food for the most part. I love food. I love soul food. But it's also talking about how tough you have to be as an individual, and some of the stuff that people go through and other people put you through, you kind of have to survive. And, I love a good song about encouragement, about, lifting somebody up and keeping them going, as opposed to some of these other songs that, all they talk about is sex and, I love your booty. Let me touch your booty. I like music with substance, and that's just my personal take on the situation, I guess.
So no Baby Got Back in your soundtrack.
Yeah, no. I mean, maybe towards the end. But yeah, not a main course for sure. That might be a bonus track on the CD.
A solid 3 picks, to say the least. Great soundtrack. Now that we have the soundtrack down, everybody knows you get the soundtrack first, then you write the script, and then you go to casting. Who plays Kongo? And you can't say yourself because you are obligated to make a Stan Lee-esque cameo.
Yikes. Man, that's a tough one, because I don't know of many Hollywood actors that have my size and stature, that would be passable as me. So honestly, I guess if I had to choose a person, it'd probably be a random person. It'd be a good buddy of mine who goes by Papa Dingo, or sometimes he flips the switch and he goes by Super Oprah. Jabari Hawthorne is his name, and he's a big fella like me, and he can move. He is versatile. Like I said, he one character is the savage, the other one plays I guess a woman, a female, kind of like a Tyler Perry and Medea kind of situation.
I got you.
And yeah, it's amazing. It's so entertaining everywhere he goes, even in the weirdest of places that you wouldn't expect for it to get over. It gets over. So like we're out in West Virginia, and people from West Virginia, they're like, well, blah blah blah. That's not my thing, and whatever.
Right.
But like his music hits, and they're like on their feet and they're clapping, they're loving the situation. Like he comes out and he's wearing makeup and heels, and he's been this individual that they call Super Oprah, and he's amazing at it. He blows my mind away every time I see him. Like I laugh and I'm invested in the product when he does it. So if I guess if anybody's going to play me, I would give it to him.
All right. Now that we have you casted, every movie has a supporting cast. Who would be 3 people significant to you and your story that would be in your movie, and who would play them?
Hillbilly Jed, who is my best friend. He's a wrestler out of Indianapolis who never got the credit that he quite deserved. For the longest, I was 6'6", 400 pounds. He was 5'6", 400 pounds. Yet, everything that I've done, any of the flipping moves, like the moonsault or the cannonball in the corner, anything like that, I got from him. And even to this day, he has whatever audience he's in front of, he has the ability to capture them and captivate them. And he's been my best friend, I would say, since around 2008 is when we first, met each other, and kind of, as much as I don't like to say fell in love with each other, we fell in love with each other. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, he has a wife. I love his wife. His wife is, my other best friend, and it's like, it's definitely a 2-for-1 situation. You know what I'm saying, with those two. But like, we click on a level, and I'm used to being the person that everybody runs to with their problems. He's my go-to when I have a problem.
Okay.
He'd be one person, not necessarily the most important person, because the most important person would be my mom.
Okay.
I had her for 42 years of my life before she passed, and she taught me so much. And without her, I wouldn't be half the man that I am now. Yeah, so we're gonna move on from that one, because that's I would say sensitive, but talking about my mom kind of makes me cry. It makes me tear up a little bit.
No further explanation needed.
Right. Let me see, who else? Oh boy, I would probably say Ian Rodden, honestly, because even though Jeff Jarrett noticed me, and Scott Demore noticed me, and they're responsible for a lot of things that I've done. They wouldn't have noticed me without Ian Rodden first noticing me and finding something in me to use, or we're not even Ian Rodden. I don't know. There's so many people, because honestly, Kongo Kong wouldn't be had without ICP, without the Insane Clown Posse and JCW. Without them, there'd be no me. And, I'd just be Osiris still, just a guy, basically portraying a souped up version of Steve Wilson.
I gotcha. All right. So, who will play? Do you have people that will play Hillbilly and your mom?
Oh, that that's a hard one because I don't know, like, huh? With Hillbilly being a bigger guy, if Jonah Hill was still a fluffier guy, then he would make more sense than most other people. But even still, he wasn't as big as Hillbilly Jetted or was, because he's lost a significant amount of weight as well. As far as my mom goes, that like it would take like the best Hollywood actress to portray her, and make her to do her any justice, and how important and how big a role she actually had in my life.
I gotcha. And obviously the whole everybody from JCW will be casted would be casted individually. Too many people to cast.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Either way, it sounds like an incredible movie, a blockbuster to say the least, and you could pre-order the tickets now. Alright, that being said, on to a controversial subject. Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Bring me all the pineapple on the pizza. As long as there's some sort of salty meat like ham or bacon on there, it is tremendous. Like, and people who don't like that, like, stay away from me near a staircase, because I might get it in my head to Sparta kick you down those stairs.
Wow. Don't tell Kongo Kong you don't like pineapple on pizza on the second floor. Make sure you're on ground level. Alright. What's your spirit Pokemon?
I've never paid attention to Pokemon, so I wouldn't be able to tell you at all.
Fair enough. Now, we love the late great Tracy Smothers on the show.
Oh.
Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
Ironically, I don't, and it's crazy because I know Tracy. I've spent a lot of time with Tracy and love me some Tracy Smothers. Tracy Smothers is an awesome guy. A lot of people would find fault with like him wearing the rebel flag to the ring and stuff like that, but I never saw anything about Tracy that would make me think that he was anything other than a genuinely good human being.
Hell yeah. Well,
just to know what it means, what does it mean?
T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail. 'Cause a dog can't spell. Yes, we love the late great Tracy Smothers. We're trying to keep the memory the memory alive on the show.
Yes, Tracy is the man. Not was, is the man still to this day.
Can you give us a Tracy Smothers story?
Yeah, when I first got to JCW, he was there, and he was just like, "Hey there, biggin." And just like from that day on, like, like, hi, how are you? Like, I remember watching you as Freddie Joe Floyd and blah, blah, blah. And he's, every time I would see him after that, he'd tell everybody basically my life story. He'd be like, yeah, man, I watched this guy and he wrestled for ICP, Insane Clown Posse. And they were pushing him to the moon, man. He's your guy right there. If you want somebody, that's your guy. And just, Tracy, just a tremendous human being. Every time I watched him work, I'd watch him be out there for 45 minutes, do like 2 minutes of actual wrestling, and have the fans pissed off the entire time. Because he'd grab the mic and he'd say that iconic, if anybody in here says Tracy sucks, then I'm going to blow everybody up.
Yes, that sounds very much like Tracy's.
Yes. People would be upset and ready to riot in that place, and it was awesome. I loved watching Tracy.
All right. Now, weirdest question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview, hopefully. Would you ever consider wrestling a Rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the country, an actual physical Rock.
Ironically, I've been on shows where people have wrestled the Invisible Man, and I've seen people wrestle a broomstick and stuff like that. And while it can be funny and entertaining while they do it, for me, no. I am I consider myself to be above the part where wrestling looks stupid. You know what I mean?
I gotcha.
Like, not saying that what they did was stupid or that I think they're stupid for doing it or anything like that, because, if somebody has an idea and that idea is going to help you feed your family, then I'm all about it.
The comedy aspect of pro wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. I try to keep wrestling looking as real as possible. I know, and I'm a painted face guy who comes out and roars at people, and I pretend like I don't speak most time in most cases, and what I'm saying I'm blurring the lines of realism and not realism as it is, but I don't want to make it look like a joke, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. Well, just for context, there is this wrestler named Psycho Mike that indeed wrestled a Rock for over 15 minutes in a tungsten
Psycho Mike.
Yes.
Psycho Mike from Canada?
Yes, Smash Wrestling.
I know Mike.
He wrestled an actual Rock for over 15 minutes in a Tungsten Man match. That's an Iron Man match that lasts for 2 weeks.
I can believe it. He's he's quite the guy. Yeah, I'll share the ring with him as well. And yeah, I totally can believe it from him. And I bet he made it look good.
He did. And there was like a full backstory of why they were wrestling as well. So, that was appreciated.
That's awesome.
On a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Whew. Hopefully I'm still training and still able to stay strong as far as my bookings go, and still making good gear for people, and it's always a hope. You never really know until the day gets here. I had my doctor ask me the other day, he's like, so what is your end goal? What do you see happening as far as wrestling goes? And I go, well, I plan to ride this thing till the wheels fall off. Whether I'm in the ring in 5 years or I'm producing somebody's TV show in that amount of time or whatever. This is what I love to do, and I can't see myself doing anything else. And so I'm hoping and praying that I have that opportunity.
Hell yeah! All right, now that we are we're nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom. This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready?
All right.
Excluding yourself, greatest wrestler of all time.
Hulk Hogan. He made the most money for everybody. Behind him would be John Cena, who made the second most money for anybody.
Worst wrestler.
Hulk Hogan. Because he wasn't a wrestler. He knew how to entertain, though. You know what I mean?
I think that's the first time somebody had the best wrestler and the worst wrestler be the same person. You're main eventing WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who is your opponent?
Undertaker, or Big Van Vader, or Yokozuna, I guess. But one of those, yeah.
Make it a four-way.
Why not, right?
Yeah. If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
Vader's, or Legion of Doom, because both of those, or Demolition, because all of those were badass interesting, and they made you, when you heard them going, they made you go, oh shoot, this is gonna be good.
Oh yeah. Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is...
Can be still alive, because there's some of us who try to still keep it as such.
We would have also accepted taste great on toast. Squash, vegetable or fruit?
Vegetable.
It is indeed a fruit.
Is it?
Yes, it has
They
seeds.
say that about tomatoes too, but I don't see myself ever eating a tomato unless it's on like a hamburger or something.
Well, that's the exact logic. It's tomato logic because it has seeds.
Ow. Boo.
Well, you're part of...
Cucumbers have seeds. Are cucumbers fruits?
We only deal in squash on this podcast. You have to go to somebody else for that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But you are a part of Squash Squad now, and that means a hell of a lot more. New Japan wrestler Taichi, his ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
I think if you have a decent tuchus, a decent butt, then you can show a little bit of cheekage, but honestly, I guess unless you're Rikishi. Rikishi, you know what I'm saying, his whole world was his ass.
Right.
And so it made sense for him to show it, as bad as, it might look.
So maybe like 10% for everybody, but not 80% for Rikishi.
Correct.
All right. And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
Never, because I don't know much about Darby Allin. I've watched a what do you call that? An A&E special on him, and I still don't really know anything about him. And the fact that he's willing to put his body on the line the way he does is admirable. However, as I tell the young kids these days, you don't get to 25 years in this business by doing crazy stuff all the time. So, if I ever had the chance to have a conversation with him, I tell him, maybe slow down a little bit so you can be walking in 5 years.
And that is the correct answer. And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Man, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was actually quite fun.
I appreciate that as well. Once again, where can we find all things Kongo Kong on social media and merchandise and your wrestling school?
Oh well, if you hit me up under Steve Wilson on Facebook, you're quicker to get to me probably than if you hit me under the Kongo Kong, the Juggernaut Osiris page, or if you're looking for training, hit me up at Professor Kong's Wrestling Academy. That's another good one. If you need gear, I have a page called Juggernaut Gear by Osiris, or again, find me under Steve Wilson. If you're on Twitter, my @ is @Real Kongo Kong. Hit me up on there. On Instagram, it is Kong Osiris, all one word. 78 Kong Osiris 78. That's my handle on there. And either one of those, I'd get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. If you want to just chit chat, that's cool. If you actually need like gear or some training or anything like that, that's awesome. Either way. Only way I won't talk to you is if you're a weirdo. And it takes a while for me to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm talking to a weirdo. Let me figure out something else to do.
So that excludes Danhausen.
I might make an exception for him. He seems pretty cool.
Fair enough. And where can we find merchandise?
Merchandise, if you're not going to see me at a show anytime soon, if you wanted to grab something from me, I really just only carry 8x10s and t-shirts. Just hit me up on either of those that I talked about, and I can get you an autographed 8x10 for $10 in shipping, or a t-shirt, autographed or whatever for $25 in shipping.
All right. And you don't have to type it into your Google machine. All of the links to all his social media will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox. Whether you just want to follow him, if you want to get gear made, if you want to get trained by him, or if you just want some awesome merch, simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Buy a damn shirt.
Buy a damn t-shirt. Gosh, man's got to eat.
Hell yeah. Of course, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and Castbox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us tomorrow as we interview Clara Carter, and every Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews. Follow the show at Wrestling with E, both on X, Thread, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Alright, when I say wrestling wit, you say entertainment, okay?
Alright.
For our special guest Kongo Kong, Coleco Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with
Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.